Greetings and welcome to my week's end ramblings. The scene behind me today is a grey day in Dublin, in O'Connell Street, and it's a very wet and miserable day here in Hobart. Not as bad as some of the places on the New South Wales coast, which have suffered quite a deal of rain, and so we remember those who are struggling because of floods and the damage that's been done. This past week has been an interesting week. Last Sunday afternoon, Father Terry and I headed out and had a little bit of a drink at Last Rites, the local brewery, and then we had a meal together. Chatted to a couple at Last Rites and found out that they were from the west coast of Scotland, and that was an interesting little space for that. On Monday, besides the normal mass and Zoom meeting with friends in the US, I had a meeting with some of the concerned Catholics of Tasmania group, and we're talking about some of the aspects of the synod and implementation of some of the synodal material that came out at the end of last year's synod meeting, and so look forward to further developing some of those issues. Tuesday, not my day off again for this week, fourth week in a row, but Tuesday I had two funerals, which took up a great deal of time and left me just a little bit exhausted at the end of the day. Wednesday, we had our parish team meeting, and that was beneficial. And after having a school mass, there's some challenges we have to look forward to as far as all that's concerned. But on Wednesday evening, had a present time of prayer and praise, and then a meal with some parishioners and others who come to our prayer and praise night. Thursday, I had a mass at the secondary campus of St Aloysius, followed by a funeral. And then later in the afternoon, a young parishioner was given a task, as many of the others in her class were given, to talk to somebody who had some experience of life in the 70s and 80s. And the mother suggested Father Mike might be a good choice. So I spent time talking to this young lass and answering some of her questions. And then later in the afternoon, I headed out to work with a family, a wife and two children, as they prepare for the funeral of her husband, who died just recently, and whose funeral will be next week. Yesterday, Friday, I had the opportunity to talk to two of my classmates, Eugene and Michael, were celebrating their 50th anniversary of priesthood yesterday. I'll catch up with both of them next week when I go to Melbourne, and I'm looking forward to that. Then I had mass at St Aloysius at the church, then a visit to the Snug Cemetery to look at the possibility of having a small memorial garden around the back of the church, just on the side of the current cemetery. And then we had a meal with some friends last night. Today, Saturday, is voting day for our Legislative Council, Upper House council member. So that was done first thing. Then I've been in contact with two others of my classmates who celebrate 50 years today. Left a message for one and spoke to the other, so that was good. So I've been in contact with four of the six of my classmates who are still part of the ministry of the priesthood. One other, his anniversary is much later in the year, and but he lives in Thailand, and we've not been able to contact him in recent times, so just not sure what's happening there. So it's been an interesting week. It's also a bit challenging because the lass who's been working in the parish office has had to head home to the Philippines as one of her close relatives is dying. So she headed off and will be away for a few days, which means that the office will be looked after by a volunteer, but all the work we needed to do for next week's newsletter has basically been done. So when I get back for next Saturday for the week's end rambling, I'll be able to give you an update on what's happened and how we've managed to survive. So in the midst of a cold autumn day, I'd like to hope that you have a chance to take time, recreate, renew yourself so that as you come to the end of the week and the weekend, that you might be in a good form to tackle whatever happens next week. Take care, stay safe, and look forward to seeing you next week on my Week's End Ramblings.